Welcome back to the ETF Inspector. It is Tuesday, July 29th, about 7 o'clock at night. And this will be our recap video for YieldMax Funds ULTY, the Ultra Option Income Strategy Fund, and LFGY, the Crypto Industry and Tech Portfolio Option Income ETF. Both are weekly paying dividend funds by YieldMax. Both make tons of trades every day, as you will see in just a minute. So before we get into it, reminder, I am on X at ETF_Inspector1. Let you know when the videos are premiering. If you're the kind of person that likes to watch the first version of the video and get to chat in the live chat, I'm usually there unless I've got something big going on. But I also post things for other ETFs that I cover as well, like Round Hill 0 DTE funds, my own personal trades videos. I put up my thank yous from Buy Me a Coffee. And speaking of thank yous, before we get into it, I want to start with a thank you for the most recent donation, or I believe it's called a super thanks. Super thanks from Mother TV 1287. Gave $15 yesterday on the ULTY Monday video, so thank you very much, Mother TV. I appreciate it very much. Definitely not expected. So definitely overwhelmed. I never expected this to be happening. I thought I was just going to get some advertising money from YouTube. But all right, so let's get right into it. You saw the thumbnail. It's going to be an ugly day, so just go ahead and prepare yourself. It's going to be an ugly day. Almost all red. I also saved this because I wanted to talk about, I wonder if you guys notice when I make these AI images, they always say AI struggles with hands. Look how many fingers this guy's got. I just thought that was funny. I wanted to show you. But you did notice ULTY, the fund managers over at ULTY, they don't like me very much apparently, so they want to make my life harder. They added 4 more stocks and a fund, 3 stocks and a fund to our already large fund that we have. We've got 28 underlyings now just within ULTY, so I will try to get through them as quick as I can, but we will see. All right, so after 5:30 we go through and download the intraday trades from YieldMax's website. Start off with ULTY, and this is actually a much smaller than usual day, line 77 to line 113, so not too bad at all, less than 40 trades. Haven't seen a day like that in a long time. LFGY, not so bad either, line 271 through 314, so pretty similar, about 43 trades, so not bad at all. We should be able to get through the trades fairly quickly. We'll start with ULTY, the ULTY underdogs. Everybody likes that most. So from the start, we bought into Qualcomm, BitMine Immersion Technologies, and if you've been watching these videos, we just bought into BitMine Immersion Technologies in LFGY the other day as well. Meta Platforms, and 2 times the long VIX futures. So I don't include that spent money into our intraday trading, otherwise it would look like we just lost $175 million trading today. That's not the case. More people bought into the fund, right? You gave YieldMax your money, you gave ULTY your money, and they put it to work. They bought stocks so they could sell calls off of them. So that buying of stocks, although it cost money, that's why I've got a negative there, that's not a loss. So that's not an option income trading. So I do not count that towards our day trading, okay? First one off, ASTS, that's AST Space Mobile. Closed out their 57s and rolled them down to 55s, adjusted the puts from 52s down to 50, resulted in a credit of $1.4 million. BitMine, right, we just bought new shares, so we had to start our collar position. A collar is where you own shares of the underlying, you sell calls out of the money on the upside to generate income, and you buy puts out of the money on the downside to protect your shares. So I had some questions in comments today about when do the puts start protecting. Well, they start protecting right away, because if the stock drops, it doesn't have to drop 250 before the puts become valuable. As you can see, they purchased those puts today. They had to pay 64 cents a share for them. If the stock drops lower, closer to 50, that will increase. In general, if you were trading options yourself, you buy those puts, and let's say the stock dropped all the way down to 25, well, you still get to sell that person your shares for 50. YieldMax within these funds, they don't do assignment, they don't exercise, so they will just close them out. They'll sell them and take the profit. If they became more valuable, they will buy them and take the loss. If they, speaking of the calls, if the stock went up past the strikes, okay? But a lot of people are asking for options, just simple options videos, and I will for now point you to Options with Davis or Retire on Dividends. They've already got nice explanation videos out there. Okay, so opened up the new collar strategy on BitMine, brought in a little over $1 million to the good. Galaxy was a close and roll. They only adjusted the short calls, meaning the ones that they sold. They did not adjust their puts. So they closed out their 3250s, 34s, and 35s, paying 10, 12, and 13 cents. And they sold all 30s, still for this Friday, 40-ish cents a piece, 653,000. I will note that on the new stock BitMine Immersion, they did sell those and buy those out till August 15th. So we got a couple of weeks before we're worried about them. Meta, this is basically the Facebook parent company. They went ahead and sold new calls and bought new puts to go along with the new shares purchased. That brought in 121,000. Not sure what happened here. Missed one. Qualcomm, same thing as Meta. Selling new calls and buying new puts to go with the new shares, brought in $238,000. SMCI, so we talked about yesterday how they closed out multiple positions and then they only opened one of them. So then they went a different direction here. They did not sell new calls to generate income and buy puts. They started a credit spread. So as you notice, they purchased the B for bought calls for next Friday, not this Friday, at 60, and they sold calls at 70. So that is a credit, or that is a debit call spread, and so they need the stock to rise now in order to generate income. This is more of an investment, right? This isn't selling the calls and then see how we close them out. This is really more like buying them and seeing if they become more valuable. So to start, opening up this position cost us $1.7 million. So that is going to take off of our trading, profit and loss or positives versus negatives. But technically that's not a loss, right? Because that is the investment to start with. If you guys have been here for a while, we've done credit or debit call spreads before, so this is nothing new. Tempus AI, closing out their 65s and 68s, adjusting them still within the same week to 62s, adjusted the puts as well from 56 and 58 down to 55. All in all, resulted in a credit of $1.8 million. UVIX, this is confused right off the start. So this is obviously the new 2 times long VIX futures ETF. So they started off by selling calls. Let's see, is that a 20 or a 200? That's a 20. Sorry for the fast scrolling. So we sold 15,000 calls at 20. We purchased 15,000 puts at 16, and then we sold 15,000 puts at 14, all for 2 Fridays from now. Two weeks from this coming Friday. A little bit confusing strategy. It's not our typical. I guess you could technically. I'm not so great with all my terms. It might be like a strangle or something like that, or. So if you group these two together, there's the selling of the call and the buying of the put. So there's a regular collar, but then we also sold 14s as puts. So try to generate a little extra income. We'll see how that works out. 225,000. As long as the that's an ETF. As long as it stays above 14, then those will expire worthless, and it will have been an extra 200,000 collected. All right, finally, Vertiv Holdings bought to close those 136s. They've been sitting in the money for a little while now, and sold 155s, still for the same week. So if you watched Retire on Dividends video on Sunday with Scott Snyder, he explained when and why they do these kind of things. So VRT, Vertiv, let's scroll down, we'll jump back up, was already in the money, because as you can see, they only went up 0.13% today, and they're in the money by more than that on each of these. So what happened was, from yesterday, there was still too much time value, extrinsic value. Apparently, it reached the point where selling. What did he say? That was about selling the further out call. So that doesn't technically apply to ULTY, right? Because they don't trade that way. But apparently, there wasn't enough time value left in it, or it was low enough now that it made sense to make the trade. So sorry for taking you on that adventure for nothing. All in all, it was a debit of $2.3 million. So on the day, total profit and loss trading $1.5 million to the good. And realistically, if you think about it, 1.7 million of that was actually put into a debit call spread, so that's really not a loss. So it was a good trading day. That goes along with a record decrease in value. Obviously, as there's more and more money in the fund, then the wins and losses, the increases and decreases are going to get higher and higher. So this is our single biggest decrease on a day, 67 million plus. We might as well mention it right while we're here. Guesstimate 9.6 cents. We will find out tomorrow. Maybe we'll get a surprise to the upside. So we'll look at the silver lining to start. Now, for some reason, these fund share prices never like to, they end up, I've refreshed this multiple times, and it's saying 617 when we saw ULTY at 619. For some reason, sometime around 8 or 9 o'clock at night, it finally ticks up those last couple pennies. But anyway, that doesn't really affect any of our talking points. But so the silver lining I was saying, though, is ULTY's still above a lot of our average, even after going down, even after basically every stock within the fund went down today for the most part. So we'll start off at the beginning. We run through in alphabetical order. Applied Optoelectronics was down 4.4%. Their 27s are now 12% out of the money, and they've got 29s for next week that are 20% out of the money. AppLovin down 2.5%. 375s for this week are 3.7% out of the money, and 400s for next week are 10.6% out of the money. AST Space Mobile, this is one where we talked about it on the other trade page where there was a roll, down over 2%. They rolled the $57 calls and $52 puts, and they still have 800 of the puts at 49 that they did not touch. Coinbase down 2.12%. They've got a selection here, 405, 410, and 415 for the strikes, 9, 10.3, and 11.7% out of the money. I never mentioned this, but we've got $91.5 million sitting in our First American Government Obligation Fund. Might as well consider that cash. I mean, that's how it gets used, really. First Solar down just under 1%. 192.50s are 5.8% out of the money, and 195s are 7.2% out of the money. Galaxy Digital, the big loser out of the entire group of losers today, down 9.59%. They closed all of these positions out and rolled the calls to closer in the money and adjusted the puts down. Robinhood markets down 3.23%. 107s are 3.5% out of the money, and 113s are 9.3% out of the money. Innodata down 4.47%. 50s for August 15th are 5.8% out of the money, and 55s, same date, 16.4% out of the money. IonQ down 4.25%. 44s and 45 50s for this week, and then 47s for next week are 8.5%, 12.2%, and 15.9% out of the money. And as you can see, as we scroll down, right, here's your change in market value for each share, for each underlying, and how much that hurt us in decreasing our value. Mara Holdings down 3.21%. 1850s and 19s for this Friday, 11.3% and 14.3% out of the money. MicroStrategy down 2.26%. We've got 420s and 422.50s expiring this Friday, 6.4% and 7% out of the money. Nebius Group down almost 4.5%. 53.5s and 54.5s for this Friday, 6.1% and 8.1% out of the money. Oklo down almost 6%. So these were in the money before today. So although it's going to help us possibly win these trades, that's not the way you want to do it, because it hurts more. All right, Scott Snyder said they would rather be scrambling to buy to close calls that have been where the strike has been blown through and resell. They would much rather that than closing things out for pennies, because when they're scrambling, that means the value of the fund is climbing quickly. So these 74s and 75s ended up coming out of the money by 4.2% and 5.6%. Palantir down a little over 1%. They've got 162.50s for this week, 4% out of the money, and 160s and 162.50s for next week, 2.4% and 4% out of the money. Reddit down 4.37%. 155s, 160s, and 165s all sold for this Friday, 6.9%, 10.3%, and 13.8% out of the money. Rigetti down 7.06%, dropped those 1650s to 14% out of the money. SMCI down 2.36%, basically brought these 60s just out of the money, 2.3%, and they also have 55s for next week that are still in the money by 6%. And then when tomorrow's download becomes available for the holdings, we will have that new debit call spread in here as well. Or was it? Yeah, I think it was a debit call spread. New Scale Power, SMR down 3.92%. 54s for this week are 10.2% out of the money. 56s for next week are 14.3% out of the money. Not sure why that happened, but let's quiet things down. Snap down 3.66%. Feel like that thing's just done nothing but drop since we bought it. 12.5% out of the money on those 1050s expiring next Friday. Tempest AI down almost 6% today. Rolled all the positions, so don't need to talk about them. We'll see new tomorrow. Tesla down 1.35%. We've got 335 as our lone strike price. They're 4.3% out of the money. Upstart Holdings down 2.27%. We've got 84s, 85s, and 87s for this week. They're 4.4%, 5.6%, and 8.1% out of the money. And then they also have 90s for next week that are 11.9% out of the money. We had to get all the way to the letter V before we found our first stock that went positive today. 0.13% increase for Vertiv Holdings, and we rolled those 136s and their associated puts. We still have 142s that are 0.5% in the money, and 148s all for this week, 3.6% out of the money. And Vistra Corp, the big winner, up 1.11%. 200s for this week are just about 1% out of the money, and 200s for next week the same, 210s for next week 6% out of the money. So that was painful. One more thing I did want to touch on, though, since we added 4 new funds and we know that our payouts are based on IV. Let's take a quick look. We added UVIX, right? 116.9% IV, so that's going to boost our dividend payments. We added Bitmine immersion. I think these guys were like 120 something. Yep, 122.7. So that's going to boost our dividend. What did we add? Qualcomm. 36.4. That's not going to boost us very much. And Meta. 37.2. All right, so we added 2 over 100 and 2 in the 30s. But we'll see how that affects the average. We won't see that till the weekend, yeah, we might see it tomorrow. Okay, next is LFGY. So LFGY did not buy or sell any shares. They only made options trades. Now, I wanted to point this out because if you take a look, let's just look at the first couple, right? Bitmine immersion, they sold 14 contracts for calls. But if we look, they have 96,900 shares, and they've sold 969 contracts. So they are maxed out right there. I'm not sure how they are selling more unless they are just selling naked calls. So we'll see when we get the download tomorrow if I don't know if things were missing off of today's download or what. So same thing goes with BitDeer, right? So I always was wondering, and now I just kind of started looking into it. How are we selling options when we don't have any available to sell? BitDeer, we sold 80 more, but if you look at BitDeer, 537, 333, that means we could sell 5,373 contracts. 4 and 1's 5, 3, 7, 3. So right there, we're maxed out. How did we have the ability to sell more? So we must be selling naked calls. So it's definitely a way to bring in some more income. It's just a little riskier than if we've got to close them out. And I think I'm going to stop saying on both of these funds that were capped. If you've heard us say that before when we talked about, right, the stock can run up to, from 371, it can run up to 420 before it's capped. Well, Scott Snyder also kind of corrected us in his interview on that one. That's not capped if in that day they are going to sit there and buy to close that and sell a new one to allow us to continue increasing value. So we're not capped anymore. That's what you're paying, that management fee of like 1.3, 1.4%. You're not capped. They're actively managing it, and they're gonna get that uncovered as quick as possible so we can keep on making money when stocks are rallying. All right, so we don't have really any. I don't want to say any. We've got 1 or 2, but up here, just a lot of small transactions. So we don't need to go through them all, $100 at a time. Big picture, NVIDIA closed out and rolled their position where they had 175s. Quick detour. They don't do a collar strategy over here. They don't buy the puts. They sell calls, and then sometimes they will buy, or they're short a call, closer to the money, still out of the money, and then they are long call or buy a call further out of the money, kind of as a limiter to how much they could have to spend to close out in the event the stock runs up. So NVIDIA closed their 175s, sold 185s, and adjusted their long calls as well. That cost us $58,000. And then PayPal, seems like they just did this to offset them. Closed out their 79s and sold 72s for next week, whereas NVIDIA's roll was still within the same week. PayPal collected 60,000. Total, all the trades up today for LFGY, and it was a $19,000 credit. As you can see, it's going to be a losing day for values over on the shares side of things. So you saw it looked pretty much the same, red almost all the way across with maybe a couple greens. So BitMine down 8.89%. They were fighting for the biggest loser but didn't get it. Down 56%. So they just aheaded these guys the other day. And my first thought is if you can sell calls 40 and 50% out of the money and still be collecting a decent premium, I might pull a DGen move and start trading these guys. BitDeer down. That's not financial advice. Don't do it. BitDeer Technologies down 5.29%. Calls for this week, 16s and 1650s are 19 and 22% out of the money. Clean Spark down about 2.5%. 1250s and 1350s for this week are 6.5 and 15% out of the money. Coinbase down 2.12%. The 420s for this week are 13% out of the money. Core Scientific down a little over 4%. We've got 14s and 1450s for this week, 6.1 and 9.9% out of the money. Circle Internet Group down 2%, 18.37% out of the money on those 215s. Ethereum, iShares Ethereum ETF down a little over 1%, takes this week's 31s to 8.8% out of the money. We've only got about $876,000 sitting here in this government obligations fund. Did I close out? I didn't. All right. Quick side note. I told you the obligation funds. I didn't tell you the cash. Cash on hand over here for ULTY was $24 million. So they basically have $24 million and $91 million available to put to use if needed. Okay, back to our LFGY. Galaxy Digital was the big loser over here, 9.59% down. 32s, 33s, and 34s all sold for this week, 19.5, 23.3, and 27% out of the money. GameStop down 1.85%. We've got 24s and 2450s for this week, 6.4 and 8.6% out of the money. Robinhood down 3.23%. We've got 117s and 120s expiring Friday. They're out of the money by 13.2 and 16.1%. Hut 8 Corp down 3.1%. We got 2150s and 2250s sold. They're 9.1 and 14.2% out of the money. Quick pause. As much as we thought we would like to see everything nice and green and far out of the money, now that we're seeing it, it doesn't feel so good because all of our stocks are dropping. We don't like that. All right, where'd I leave off? Hut 8 Corp. I think I just said that one. 9 and 14. IBIT down 0.58%. No options to trade, so just a decrease in value of 112,000. Mara Holdings down 3.21%. Their 1950s for this week are 17+% out of the money. MBTX was down as well. They've got a credit call spread sold with 295 as the short call. They're 6.1% out of the money. And then they've got the debit put spread purchased for day of the year, 230 being the purchase price. They're 17% out of the money. Mercado Libre, the big winner over here today, 1.31% increase. They're 2450s, that's 2,450. Strike is 2.7% out of the money. MicroStrategy down 2.26%. 430s and 435s are the strikes for this week, 8.9 and 10.2% out of the money. NU Holdings, another big winner, up 0.12% or 2 cents. So it was actually the second best holding within the fund today, going up 2 cents. 2.97% out of the money with those 13s expiring Friday. Nvidia down 0.7%. They've rolled these positions, so we will have new ones tomorrow. Opera down 3.19%. Their 20s sold for August 15th are 21.8% out of the money. PayPal down 8.66, another one that was fighting for that biggest loser. They rolled these positions, 747 contracts, and we will have new information tomorrow. Riot Platforms down 6.27%. They've got 15s and 1550s sold for this week, 10.2 and 13.9% out of the money. And finally, Block down close to 3%, bringing those 82s 4.89% out of the money. So all of those drops in share prices resulted in that $5.6 million decrease in value. We're still at $195 million assets under management. We still can't break that $200 million. There was no change in outstanding shares. And let's see if that updated, because that closing price on LFGY was not updating either. $37.99, $37.91, so it's still off by a little bit there. And mentioning that reminded me that I forgot to mention this part on ULTY, so I will go back and hit that in our brief recap. So ULTY did have a 10 million, almost 11 million share increase, bringing us up to 362 million outstanding shares. 362,675,000. And we have $2.27 billion managed in the fund. All right. Recap on the trades. We had a credit of $1.5 million. That's realized on the trading side, and an unrealized, just decrease in value of 67 million. LFGY, like we just said, had a $19,000 credit trading and a $5.6 million decrease in value. We're expecting around a 46-cent distribution tomorrow. I think on both of my guesses, we're going to get surprised to the upside based on the new information that Scott Snyder gave us in Retire on Dividends video. Okay, so after all that, nothing left but the dad joke of the day. So just thank you very much for watching. If you stuck around till the end, I appreciate it. Everybody that shares these videos, helping me out, thank you. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider it. Doesn't cost you anything, and it'll basically just help you know when the videos are coming out, because I put out a lot of videos. So I post them on X. I don't know if I'm going to keep them. I try to start posting them on YouTube, or if that's going to become too redundant. But anyway, dad joke of the day. Why are elevator jokes so great? Because they work on so many levels. Sorry, you get a bad dad joke to go with a bad stock market day. All right, good night, everybody, and good luck trading tomorrow. Watch out for those that distribution announcement right around 6:55 in the morning, Wednesday morning. Have a good night.